This is a Religica production. Religica.
Today I'm here with Carrah Quigley, who is an international speaker and emerging thought leader. She's a spiritual humanist and daughter of a school shooter. Her speaking topics range from feminism, earth-centered living, beauty, secular spirituality, art, music, school shootings, history, Northern Ireland, religion and American culture. She has a BA in religious studies, a master's in philosophy and ecumenics with distinction from Trinity College, Dublin, and is a proud seminary dropout. Welcome, Carrah.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I've corresponded with you quite a bit through email, and I've always been curious about the phrase that's your signature at the bottom, peace, love, lipstick. What meaning do those three words have for you?
I'm really glad that you brought it up because so many people say, I love your tagline. I love your tagline. They all happen to be women. Men don't really get the lipstick thing. And often they think it's very superficial and they feel that it sort of lessens my credentials. And I would beg to differ. I think ultimately I do want peace in the world. I believe peace is possible in our lifetime. I will never give up on that. I believe love is what we are. Love is who we are. The elements love us. The earth loves us. We love each other and we are love. And then lipstick is so that I keep my sense of humor. And I also don't think that glamour has to retire the more intelligent you become. I don't think that you have to become frumpy just because you have a PhD or you begin to study academically or you are involved in the world of studying religion. I was fortunate enough to take a class by Chung Hyun Kyung. She's a Korean theologian at Union Theological Seminary. And her first words to us when she introduced herself were, "Religion is sexy." And I think that we need to keep that going to get not only the youth involved, but more people involved, getting it to be more mainstream, the study of theology, the study of religion, so that we become smarter in our decisions with geography and foreign policy. You know, I was raised by a professor, so I remember a lot of the women in my dad's office who were getting PhDs tended to, I don't know how to say it, they downgraded their attractiveness. Can I say that? Is there a way to say that? They somehow just decided that they put away all the frilliness. And I'm not saying women have to be frilly. I want to be careful about how I say this. I suppose the lipstick for me is about like, I'm not going to sacrifice my authenticity of being a girly girl the further I move into something that's a more serious field. Let's put it that way. Now, if Birkenstocks and shorts and chapstick and a baseball hat is the way you want to go, that is fine. By all means, do that. I'm not trying to pigeonhole women into a category of glamour or no glamour. I'm just saying that for me, I need to let people know up front that I'm serious about my lipstick. It in no way diminishes my ability to have an intelligent conversation. And my sort of obsession with the beauty world is a way of self-expression and authenticity. It's not there to distract and it's not there to attract either. It's about my own empowerment with myself, my way I choose to look, and also to keep a sense of humor about it. You know, we're in very serious fields where we deal with, you know, topics of genocide, even genocidal rape. We talk about hunger and poverty a lot. We talk about the denigration of the human spirit through many religions that have sort of pounded it out of people. And I want to be able to keep a sense of humor while we enter these really heavy fields that, you know, you can't just live there all the time. So by all means, keep your lipstick out.
I agree with it. You said that oftentimes the pretty and the smart always aren't like told together. If you're pretty, you're not always assumed to be smart, which shouldn't be how it is. I really appreciate that. It's a wonderful tagline. You've spoken about how mindfulness and breathing have been really integral to everything that you do in life. And you've kind of moved from Christianity into like a spiritual humanist place. What makes this breath and mindfulness so important?
I think that they are tools you are born with that enable you to survive a social structure that is unsurvivable and unlivable. I had panic disorder. I was diagnosed with panic disorder at age 20. And then had a struggle with suicidal ideation from my teenage years all the way up through, you know, some postpartum depression that I had. I suffered from depression all my life. And the first time I meditated, I was 17 years old, and I found something inside of myself that I did not find in my Christian upbringing. And it was much deeper, more whole, and more holy than I had found in any kind of prayer. And from that point forward, I kept wanting to go back to that. You know, how do I feel that way again? How can I get that? when I was diagnosed with panic disorder 3 years later, I had a Buddhist psychiatrist who said, I'd like to medicate you for a very short period of time to get you through the rough part, and then we'll start to employ some tools to help you with your panic attacks. And sure enough, that's what happened. I was on medication for 9 months, and then he slowly pulled me off, and I began to employ the tools of breathing properly, counting back from 100, staying in the present moment, using mindfulness, which is staying in the present moment without judgment and not arguing with reality, and also other techniques of just really honing in on what is truly happening versus what you think might be happening. A panic attack literally lasts a second. The chemical reaction is a second. It's the after effects that take so long to recover from. It's the perception of what's happening to you that takes so long to recover from. So for me, building the strength of my mind was the greatest thing I've ever done for my life. And it is something I'm probably the most proud of. It helped me through everything. And it helps me with that sense of temporariness. So if I'm in the midst of a depression that I think is going to go on forever, I can't see the light at the end of the tunnel. There's something in me because of my work with my breath and meditation that I know inherently this is not going to last forever. And so for now, I might just sit with this kind of awful, horrible feeling and see what it's here to teach me instead of trying to run in the opposite direction. You know, in mindfulness, you learn not to argue with reality. So you acknowledge, I'm depressed. I can't figure out why necessarily. And even if I don't, that's okay. But I need to acknowledge this and be with this. And then also know that eventually it will go away. It will fade. I have that understanding. And that sort of takes me into the future a little bit. But I stay grounded, knowing that through breath, through positive affirmations, I can learn to hunker down in that moment a little bit. And then eventually it starts to fade. Now that fading could take weeks. It can take a month. I haven't been in depression that long in a long time. Maybe I have one that lasts a couple days, but I think that I've shortened my depression times because of the work I've done. I meditate almost every day, 15 minutes, 20 minutes sometimes. And I also just am in the mode of doing nothing sometimes. I'll take 10, 15 minutes and just sit and look around and be in the moment. It's very healthy for me, keeps my heart rate down. I absolutely believe that these methods and techniques saved my life. So I stand by them 100%.
In the process of coming to understand yourself and understand your father, what did you learn about existing in the face of violence or in the face of a world where people commit violence?
Two things come to mind first. I mean, I'm sure there's about 100 things I learned, but number one, people do not really understand how awful gun violence is. If you have not experienced it, or in some tertiary way have a friend who's experienced it, or if it has not affected your life, you really don't know the darkness, lack of humanity all around, the idea that people in our country believe that they should hold the power to eliminate a person's life in a quick second. That is dark. And it's holding us hostage in many ways. The more the gun debate continues, the less free speech there is. And that's also a darkness. When you lose someone in a school shooting, especially the younger they are, your whole sense of order, of safety, of communal living, the idea that we get in cars and we trust each other enough to stop at stoplights because that's the rule, and then we drop our kids off. This is such a normal, universal thing to drop your child off at school, and that is broken. That humanistic trust is broken. And I would say for some people, it's impossible to recover from something like that. Very, very difficult to recover from something like that. It's what I call a sudden permanence, this idea of gun violence. It just takes a second, and it has to do with the machinations of a perpetrator and what's going on in their head based on the society they were raised in, which is our society too. And their darkness creates more darkness. And they have the ability to do that because our society also grants them the ability to have a gun. So all around, I would say, I learned about a level of darkness that is so deep and so painful. And I'm not sure that most Americans have really taken that journey to see the depth of how, I mean, there aren't really any words for that level of depth.
Right. There's, school shootings are on the rise. School threats are on the rise. I talk to high school friends back home, and they say we're sick of going to school and not knowing, like nothing feels like, how do you be safe in this kind of
Yeah.
this kind of world?
Right. And without safety, you can't be free. So the idea that America is about freedom, but we lack safety, it can't go together. They can't coexist. The feeling of being unsafe and having freedom. That those are like oil and water. It doesn't work. And if you are in your classroom and you have all around you, this is what to do if there's an active shooter, that's not a peaceful society. It's a society at war.
Right. We've come to understand at this point that being heard is an essential human need.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about what are human needs, and being listened to and being authentically heard is an essential need. And in the society today, we don't get that.
No.
A lot of times people don't listen. You watch people, they're constantly on their phone. We're constantly looking at everything else while hearing someone else. That doesn't make you feel heard.
So if we go back to school shooters, being heard is what they want when it comes to their destruction. And being outrageously violent, unethically violent, is a way to be heard. And this is proven in plot lines and all sorts of things in movies and video games and everything else. And there's this great debate about, whether video games affect or don't affect, because there's other countries with video games. But also in other countries, school programs, they have better room for critical thinking. So they understand it's a game. But between the game, the movie, and the school social structure in America, it's very similar, simplistic ways of thinking. And there's no escape from that simplicity. So because they haven't been heard, they're then going to make sure they're heard.
I have one more question. What does it mean, in your opinion, to create the society that we want to see in the future?
I think since Parliament, I can't reiterate enough that we've got to develop a relationship with the elements. We just have to hunker down and get really clear about being grateful for our breath, the clouds, the sky. We're going to lose it if we don't do something about it. Margaret Atwood said at Parliament, you save what you love. And right now we love our stuff. And something that Arun Gandhi, Gandhi's grandson, said in his talk was that there's a direct correlation between the amount of stuff you own and your level of morality. The morality decreases the more you own. And so the combination of owning a lot of stuff, loving the stuff more than the earth, and loving patriarchal masculine thinking more than feminine matrilineal thinking causes us to be out of balance. I just think that the society that especially America needs to start cultivating is one that has reverence for the earth, an understanding of the earth, and something that Americans have a very hard time with, I think, since the time of Reagan. There are limits to our consumption. There are limits to what we should own. There are limits to how we live. And pretty soon here, if we don't start exercising that and realizing that, we're going to be the ones that are responsible for the death of the earth. We already are. We've simply exported our genocidal tendencies into trash and plastic. We've exported our discriminating behaviors into trash and plastic because it affects brown and black people more than anybody else in the world. It is Africa that will suffer the most from our carbon production, not us. So we haven't stopped in terms of slavery and the killing of Native Americans in terms of the origin of our country. We have not stopped that. We've just exported it and changed it into different ways. So I think that if we want to live in a better society, it's reverence for the earth, reverence for yourself, and reverence for those around you. But you can't get anywhere until you start with the very soil you stand on, the air you breathe, and the water that you're from. I just can't say that enough. That's my big thing right now, water, life, love. I'm obsessed with it. And I hope that we could just, again, watch that water for a second as it comes out of the faucet and just say thank you. It's not cheesy or weird. Just practice it. Just say thank you. Just for a second. Thank you for plumbing. Thank you for the rivers and streams and patterns of the weather that bring it to us. Thank you for that. That's a good start.
This podcast was made possible by Religica Allies.